Hello everyone. I hope you are doing good and you are all preparing for your CLAT LLB entrance exams very well. So I'm here, myself Johnny. I'm here on part of CLAT Nation 2026 program launched by mentors. So it is to equip you well to face the entrance examination with all the knowledge that you can gather with precise information and to learn on the basis of previous year questions, the recent developments and the legal knowledge that you want. So we are preparing you in all aspects, and today I will be dealing with a general knowledge session. Especially we will look into specifically all the international organization, the major international organizations, its functions, when was it formed, where is its headquarters, and the major purposes and the recent developments if it is important or relevant to our CLAT examination. So primarily we will start with the world's largest international organization, which is United Nations. As you can see, United Nations, as the name suggests, as all of you might know, it is an intergovernmental organization. What is an intergovernmental organization? It consists of several governments, several nations. They came together, they united together and they formed a larger organization. Why for? Because for international cooperation. So before moving on to the United Nations, the term United Nations, we should know who was the precursor of United Nations. It is known as League of Nations. You might also have heard the name League of Nations. So all these international organizations, they came as the aftermath of world wars. So this League of Nations came into existence after World War I. After World War I and its perils, the nations, the leaders of all the nations came to the notion that there might be some, or there should be some international organization that ensures the cooperation of all the nations to prevent a further war. So League of Nations was formed after as part of the Treaty of Versailles. The World War I was entered due to Paris Peace Conference. So the world leaders came together and brought into existence League of Nations. So primarily its goal was to ensure collective security, to end a further war, to promote disarmament and to resolve international disputes peacefully, as you can see. So it was the first international organization with a global reach intended to prevent future wars, to promote peace and maintain security. So it was established in the year 1920 and it was headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. Initially it had 42 member states, and at the peak time of this League of Nations, it had around 58 members. However, the United States never joined this League of Nations, and the major organs of League of Nations were Assembly, a Council, a Secretariat and a court which was named as Permanent Court of International Justice, and it had some specialized agencies. It had several achievements, major achievements, but however when we look it as it is, it was a failure because its primary goal was to prevent further war, and after World War I we witnessed World War II. So it definitely means that it clearly evidences that League of Nations was a complete failure in terms of achieving its primary goal to prevent further war. So as it could not prevent any war by major powers, or it was so biased that only the great powers make use of it and the other countries were in distress as if League of Nations were not in existence. So it finally officially dissolved in April 1946, and later on came the United Nations. After the onset of World War II and its closure in so at the end of World War II, the nations and the leaders of the nations again came together and they thought that there should be an international cooperation and some international organization to keep in mind that these nations should cooperate to prevent a future war, just like the League of Nations. And Franklin D. Roosevelt was the person who came up with the idea or notion of the term United Nations, and he put in efforts, and with the signing of 1945 UN Charter in San Francisco, United Nations were established, and it replaced the League of Nations by adopting many agencies from the formerly international organization known as the League of Nations. And the interesting fact is that India is a founding member of United Nations. The major purposes of United Nations were to maintain international peace and security, just like the League of Nations, and to develop friendly relation among the nations, among the member states, and to promote human rights, because many war atrocities and perils of the war were seen by the world by then, and the world didn't have to go through that again, and so they had certain purposes or goals in mind which were much more of humanitarian concern. So maintaining peace and security, friendly relation among states, promote human rights, and also to foster socio-economic development and uphold the international law. So these were the purposes, major purposes of United Nations, and it is headquartered in New York, United States. The official languages, we can remember these by the mnemonic SCARF. SCARF stands for Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, Russian and French, and of course the official language would include English. So for the remaining languages, you can remember it by wearing a scarf. Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, Russian, French, and of course English would be definitely an official language. And as of now, 193 member states are there in the United Nations, and the last state to join is South Sudan. It entered into the United Nations in 2011, and there are some observer states like Palestine and Holy City of Vatican. So if an organization is to work, there should be fund, right? So how the United Nations is funded is that the member states voluntarily contribute amount to the United Nations. That's how it is worked. The largest contributors would be USA, China, Japan and Germany. So whether it is effective or not should be decided by the ones that study about the United Nations, by studying the history of United Nations and the recent developments in United Nations. Some say that it is a powerful organization, a world organization with 193 member states, but somehow there are criticisms that only the greatest powers are benefited from the United Nations, and they remain silent when the great powers violate the international norms and the policies issued by the United Nations. So there are criticisms and there are also the advantages due to the United Nations. It is to be critically analyzed and studied by the students that approach this particular topic. So United Nations is a whole term. When we see to the structure of the United Nations, we can see that there are 6 principal organs of UN. The first and foremost is General Assembly. Second, we have a Security Council. Then we have ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council. And we have the International Court of Justice, Secretariat and Trusteeship Council. These are the principal 6 organs of the UN. So please forget to take it in mind and never forget there are 6 principal organs for the United Nations. It is generally a body, so the works are delegated to each particular organ. So it is divided and delegated to each particular organ. Each particular organ will take care of respective policies and ideas or the work delegated to them. So firstly, we will look into General Assembly. So when we speak of a government, while we look into the Indian government, we can say that there is a parliament, right? They hold sessions together, they have discussions, and they make legislations, and they take policy decisions. Everything happens with discussions, debates, sessions, and ongoing things like that. Okay, so General Assembly is similar to the legislature or the process that we see, that we witness in India. So General Assembly is a forum where members of every state sit together and they discuss, they have sessions and they make policy decisions and other particular functions assigned to the General Assembly. General Assembly is the only organ of the UN where all the member states are allowed to participate or are members of. Okay. So it comprises 193 member states of United Nations. Each country has one vote regardless of its size or economic power. So if any decision is to be taken or any decision is to be come into effect, each country has one vote for every decision regardless of its size or economic power. And the major functions or powers of General Assembly is that they discuss with each other and make recommendations on international issues like peace or security or development, and they approve the UN budget and sets financial assessment for member states. They elect the non-permanent members of the Security Council. We will come in detail to the Security Council later on, and members of ECOSOC and the Trusteeship Council. The General Assembly only appoints the Secretary General on the recommendations of the Security Council. And it also admits new member states upon recommendation by the Security Council, and it can pass resolutions not legally binding but carry political weight. And also it coordinates international cooperation, lawmaking through treaties and declarations. So when we look into the functions and powers, almost everything regarding to the structure or how a new member state should be admitted or not, and also the non-permanent members of the Security Council, they are to be elected, the appointment of the Secretary General, everything is done by the General Assembly. So they are the decision making body. So all these nations, member nations, the delegates from these member nations, they sit together and they discuss, and these are the major functions that I have listed herein, done by the General Assembly. So almost all major and critical decision making is done by the General Assembly after discussions and debates. So how they convene a meeting is that they have regular sessions that starts in September and ends in December, that might get extended, and also if the need arises, they also conduct sessions in other periods also. Usually it is conducted in the session period which is September to December. Okay, there are special sessions also and emergency special sessions also. And when a decision is to be taken, the voting is done in the manner that 2/3 majority is required for major or significant issues, and a simple majority of the whole member nations only is required for other minor decision making. And there are 6 main committees under the General Assembly. The first committee is related to disarmament and international security. The second one is related to economic and financial, and the third committee is related to social, humanitarian and cultural aspects. The fourth committee deals with special political and decolonization issues. The fifth committee deals with administrative and budgetary issues, and the sixth committee is dealing with legal matters and issues. And for an assembly, there would be a president. General Assembly also has a president. He is elected annually from one of the 5 regional groups. The whole world is divided into regions to get representations, and he presides over the sessions, ensures orders and represents the assembly. The current president is Philemon Yang. He is from Cameroon. So his period is 2024 to 2025, and next president is elected for 2025 to 2026, Annalena Baerbock. And recent themes and developments for the United Nations General Assembly is that they focus on peace building, sustainable development, AI governance and human dignity, propose reforms under Pact for the Future and Summit of the Future. So the General Assembly literally means that it is a decision making body. It convenes sessions and the members sit together and discusses, debates and takes decisions. There are major functions assigned with the General Assembly, and it has a president who presides over every meeting. The sessions are conducted from September to December, and it might get extended, and there are also emergency special sessions and special sessions. The voting is done by a simple majority or by a 2/3 majority according to the gravity of the issue that they are discussing. So that is basically General Assembly. It is a huge body consisting of all the members of the United Nations. All the member countries are only members in the General Assembly. The next major organ of the United Nations is the Security Council. So Security Council, its primary role is that to maintain international peace and security, very simple, and it can take binding decisions under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, including authorizing military action and sanctions. How effective it is another question, but however, the primary responsibility is to keep peace and security. There are 15 members for the Security Council. Among that, 5 members are permanent. As you can see, USA, UK, France, Russia and China are the 5 permanent members. So they are consistently in the Security Council. They cannot be removed from their position. These are the 5 permanent members, and the other 10 will be non-permanent members. So they will be elected for a period of 2 terms by whom? By the General Assembly. As we dealt with in the previous topic, it can be seen that General Assembly recommends or elects the non-permanent members into the Security Council. So there will be this division of how many members can be included in the non-permanent members. They have given representative seats for each specific region, and the major function, as I told, is to maintain peace and security in international level and investigate disputes and recommend solutions between the member states, and impose economic sanctions, approve admission of new UN members, refer situations to the International Criminal Court, and recommend the appointment of the UN Secretary General. So when the Security Council takes a decision, a final decision, it is binding on all. But when it makes recommendations like the appointment of UN Secretary General, it has to be dealt with by the General Assembly, not solely binding. If it is a recommendation by the Security Council, decision has to be taken by the General Assembly. If the decision is solely made by the Security Council, then it is binding on the member nations. And the voting procedure is that there is a concept of veto power. You might have heard, some of you might have heard. Veto power is exercised by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. Which are the 5 permanent members? USA, UK, France, Russia and China. These 5 members have a power called veto power, that if a decision is to be taken in regarding a humanitarian concern issue, and if Russia is withholding or Russia is voting against it, then whatever the majority of the Security Council votes in favor of it, that is futile, that is useless. If one of the 5 permanent members votes against a notion or particular resolution, then it has to be discarded. That is known as veto power. When 5 permanent members we have in Security Council, and even if one of them exercises its veto power, then the whole resolution or decision for which they were voting will be discarded, because that is an arbitrary power sometimes. It is not democratic when it seems, when we look into at that point of view. However, this is the veto power that is exercised by the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. So, if no veto power has been exercised by any of the permanent members, then 9 out of 15 votes are needed to pass a resolution or for procedural matters, and for substantive matters 9 votes including all 5 permanent members, no veto. Veto means that resolution has to be discarded. It is as if the resolution is blocked by the veto power of the permanent member. So there are certain criticisms and the reforms criticized for lack of representation, because there is no permanent seat for Africa, Latin America or India. And also reform proposals include expanding the council to 25 members and curbing the veto power, and to include G4 nations, India, Japan, Germany and Brazil. They advocate for permanent seats. The permanent seats are allotted to only USA, UK, Russia, France and China. So the G4 nations are also advocating for getting a permanent seat in the UN Security Council, because certain decisions are taken by the Security Council and these rest of the nations have no voice in that, and if the veto power is exercised by these 5 permanent members, then that decision itself is blocked and it is somewhat arbitrary, is thing thought by the other countries. So they are advocating for permanent seats and to expand the number of seats in the Security Council. So that's about Security Council. And India is a non-permanent member. India was a non-permanent member in the year 2021 to 22, and India sat in the Security Council for about 8 times. Okay. Now we move on to, we looked into the General Assembly, the UN Security Council. So the core decision making authorities are both the UN General Assembly and Security Council. Now we move on to ECOSOC, or Economic and Social Council. You have to keep in mind that when you understand the concepts of the international organization, when we first take the United Nations, you have to understand the concept that that was particularly or specially tailor-made for keeping or maintaining international peace and security. So whether or all organs have different functions, its major aim is to promote international peace and security by cooperation among the member states. Its agenda would be a separate from that of peacekeeping and security. However, the final goal or motive would be maintaining peace. And for ECOSOC also, its purpose is to coordinate the economic, social and environmental work of the UN and its specialized agencies. It works to improve living standards, promote human rights and ensure sustainable development. It has 54 members while we look into the structure, and it is elected by the General Assembly for a period of 3 years. Seats are allocated geographically to ensure representative participation. Africa has 14, Asia Pacific region has 11, Latin America and Caribbean has 10, Western Europe and others have 13 and Eastern Europe have 6 seats. Okay, the major functions are: it is a forum for discussing international economic and social issues. It promotes higher standards of living, full employment and respect for human rights. It coordinates the activities of UN specialized agencies that we will look into more in the upcoming slides. So certain agencies, autonomous agencies, are under the ECOSOC, this particular organ. They made agreements with ECOSOC and are currently working under the ECOSOC. So the activities of that particular agencies are coordinated by ECOSOC. And it also organizes major international conferences and follow-up reviews. Like, we will create certain goals, and whether these goals were achieved or not will be evaluated by the Economic and Social Council, which is a principal organ of United Nations. And also it has subsidiary bodies, which would be UN Commission on the Status of Women, UN Forum on Forest, Statistical Commission, Commission on Social Development, Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. So Economic and Social Council, what it does is that it coordinates international development through the areas economic, social and environmental. It focuses on these 3 areas and the development of the member states through these 3 areas, and also the specialized agencies of the United Nations are under the authority of ECOSOC. They are answerable to the ECOSOC, and there are 54 members. So its function is to develop a nation economically and to provide social and economical development, to look into the environmental issues and such. And also the challenges that are faced by the ECOSOC is that limited authority over the member states and overlapping mandates with other UN agencies. There are certain challenges faced by the ECOSOC. Now we move on to International Court of Justice, ICJ. It is a principal judicial organ of the UN. Unlike the other 5 organs of the United Nations, this is situated in The Hague, Netherlands. The other 5 organs, they are situated in New York, USA. Along with the other organs, it was also established in the year 1945 and started functioning in 1946. The composition of International Court of Justice is that it has got 15 judges. They are elected for a term of 9 years by the General Assembly and Security Council. And judges must represent principal legal systems of the world, and from one country only one judge is served for a term period. And the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice is that it deals with legal disputes between the states, the member states, and also it gives legal advice to the UN bodies when they refer a particular issue to the International Court of Justice. So it deals with cases where territorial disputes, maritime boundaries are discussed, for diplomatic protection, treaty interpretations and use of force and sovereignty. These are the type of cases dealt with by International Court of Justice. So if a final verdict is given by the ICJ, how it is enforced? If a state fails to comply, the Security Council may enforce the judgment, but it is rarely used, and also there is no direct enforcement power. There is no military power for the United Nations, so direct enforcement is not possible. The recent important cases which was dealt by the ICJ, Ukraine versus Russia, were alleged genocide under the Genocide Convention, and also in Gambia versus Myanmar, it alleged genocide of Rohingya, and Israel's actions in Palestinian territories. In that particular case, which is ongoing, advisory opinion was requested by the UN General Assembly from the ICJ. The ICJ, as we saw, it deals with the disputes between the states. See, disputes between the states. However, there is a court called International Criminal Court. It is different from the ICJ, whereas ICJ hears only state-to-state disputes, whereas ICC, International Criminal Court, it tries individuals for genocide, war crimes, etc. So ICC and ICJ is not to be confused. ICJ is a principal organ of the United Nations. In United Nations, there are member states. So where there is dispute between the member states, ICJ comes to the rescue, and it also deals with different types of cases, and there is no specific enforcement agency. It is different from ICC, where it deals with or it tries individuals for war crimes. And the next important principal organ of the United Nations is the Secretariat. So we saw the General Assembly, where people sit together and they make decisions, they conduct debates, and they have certain functions like appointment of the non-permanent members, other decision making powers. And we saw the Security Council, which is a much more compact organ of the Security Council, where there are only 15 members, among which 5 are permanent members and the other 10 non-permanent members are elected. Discussions are ongoing, and certain other countries are advocating for including them also as the permanent members of the Security Council. And we saw the ICJ, International Court of Justice, which is a judicial organ of the United Nations. And also we saw the ECOSOC, which deals with economic, educational, social, cultural aspects of countries and the development in that areas, and to attain peace and security through that particular aspects. Now we move on to the Secretariat. We do not see an enforcement agency until now. We have not seen. Now we are moving to the administrative arm of the UN, the body which enforces the decisions of other, to keep in check every decisions of other agencies, other principal organs. It carries the day-to-day work as directed by the General Assembly and organs. It is headed by the Secretary General, appointed for a 5-year renewable term. It is appointed by the General Assembly on the recommendation of the Security Council. We saw in the functions of the General Assembly that the Secretary General is appointed by the General Assembly, but it is upon the recommendation of the Security Council. Security Council does not have a final say. It just gives recommendation to the General Assembly, and it is appointed by the General Assembly. So the duties of a Secretary General is that he is the chief spokesperson and diplomat of the United Nations. He is the face of the United Nations, and he acts as a mediator in the conflicts between the member states and brings threats to international peace to the attention of the Security Council. He analyzes the situation, and also he brings threats that may occur to international peace to the attention of the Security Council, so that they can take a good resolution for resolving the same, and reports on the work of UN. So he is the face of the United Nations, Secretary General. He is appointed by the General Assembly for a term of 5 years and can be renewed for another period. Current Secretary General is Antonio Guterres. He is serving his second term from 2022 to 2026. His priorities are, the major themes put forward are climate change, digital governance, human rights, Ukraine conflict mediation. The Secretariat consists of international civil servants like our administrative section in India, and they must remain neutral and not take instructions from any country. They are a separate entity, a separate different identity it has, and it has many civil staffs to ensure the administration of the United Nations, and the Secretary General would be the face of the Secretariat and the whole United Nations. Its major office is in Hague, and it has certain other offices in Geneva, Nairobi, Vienna and Bangkok also. We move on to the final principal organ of the United Nations, which is known as the Trusteeship Council. Unlike the other 5 organs, the Trusteeship Council is not in existence. It is not operating as of now. Why? Because we need to know the purpose of why the Trusteeship Council was originated or established. The purpose was that after the end of the World War II and when the United Nations formed, there were certain countries who neither had a sovereign nor they were independent. Okay, so the Trusteeship Council was originally created to administer these territories. They were known as trust territories. They neither had a sovereign, they were not independent, and they were former colonies. So to administer these trust territories, Trusteeship Council was formed to ensure that they achieved self-governance or they became independent later on. So to administer either the self-governance or independence of these trust territories, there were 11 trust territories. To administer and manage these territories, Trusteeship Council came into existence, and the structure of the Trusteeship Council is that it has 5 permanent members of the Security Council, met as required, not regularly, because as per the needs of these trust territories only, they had to conduct the meetings. And the current status is that, as I told, it suspended its operations in 1994 after the last trust territory, Palau, gained independence. It still exists in the UN Charter, but it is inactive. It is not in operation because its primary aim or goal was fulfilled. So its possible future roles are also to be looked into, which should be transforming this current body into a body dealing with global commons like outer space, climate change, deep seabed, global artificial intelligence governance. These areas are not covered by any international organization or framework or rules. So it might get transferred a future role in the following roles. Now we have completed all 6 organs of the United Nations. The first one is the United Nations General Assembly. General Assembly is the decision-making body. It comprises of all member states of the United Nations, unlike other principal organs. And then we have the Security Council. The Security Council only has 15 members. It is compact, as I said earlier. It has 5 permanent members which exercises veto powers. And also we have the ECOSOC, which deals with the economic, social, cultural aspects and maintaining peace and security through those particular aspects. And we dealt with International Court of Justice, ICJ, which is situated in Hague, whereas other all principal organs are situated in New York, USA itself. The ICJ is a judicial wing of the United Nations, and we have the Secretariat. The Secretariat is the administrative arm. When the ICJ is a judicial arm, Secretariat is the administrative arm of the United Nations. And we now dealt with Trusteeship Council, which is not in operation, it is inactive right now. However, it has future possible roles as we discussed. Now we have UN specialized agencies. Specialized agencies are autonomous organizations. They have a particular goal and they work through agreements with the UN under the body ECOSOC. ECOSOC we already dealt with. It is a primary organ, principal organ of the United Nations. So we will deal with each specialized agency. The first one we will deal with is at World Health Organization. When we study the UN specialized agencies, what we have to look into is that what is the full name of when we have got abbreviation, what is the full name, where it is headquartered, and what are the major functions or the primary purpose of this specialized agency, and any recent development with regard to that specialized agency. If any actions have been taken recently, that might come up in the questions. So first we will look into World Health Organization. World Health Organization, it was established in 1948. It is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, and as the name suggests, World Health Organization. So what might it require, or what will be its primary purpose? To ensure the health and the global health leadership and coordination. Its major functions are to set international health standards, to coordinate global response to pandemics like we saw in the era of COVID-19 and the Ebola virus. It supports universal health care and immunization. It publishes a report known as World Health Report. The recent initiative we can see with respect to World Health Organization or WHO is that pandemic treaty in negotiation for future preparedness and promotes One Health approach. What is One Health approach? Humans, animals and environment, everything is interacted together. So a health concept is to be achieved by coordinating with all three: health, animals and environment. So World Health Organization or WHO, it was established in the year 1948 and is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. And its major goal is to set international health standards and to achieve those and to respond globally to pandemics and to support universal health care. And it publishes a report known as World Health Report. The pandemic initiative during the time of COVID-19 is notable from the part of WHO. And we have the second specialized agency, UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. It was established in the year 1945 and it is headquartered in Paris, France. So the key programs offered by the UNESCO is that it recognizes World Heritage Sites. You might have heard of recognizing heritage sites by the UNESCO. We have several in India. One major one is Kanchenjunga, and it publishes a report known as Global Education Monitoring Report, and it supports freedom of the press. So what it is aiming for is that it promotes peace through education, science and culture. So with collaborating and taking knowledge and techniques from and sharing culture, education and technology from all of its member nations and promoting peace and security in that manner. And its recent notable works are AI ethics framework and promotion of indigenous knowledge systems available in its member states. So that would be the details about UNESCO. It is headquartered in Paris. Next is International Labour Organization. It was established in the year 1919. That is, even prior to the existence of United Nations, it was at the time of League of Nations, International Labour Organization came into effect and it is still running. A UN agency since 1946 and it is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland itself. So the major aim of international organization is that it promotes decent work, labor rights and social justice. And it mandates that a tripartite structure is to be formed, that is government, employers and workers. These three are to be taken part in the decision making process or the resolutions of the International Labour Organization. Then only a fruitful result can be brought to promote the decent work, labor rights and social justice in the whole world and it's specifically in its member states. The recent focus of the International Labour Organization is much specific. Platform economy like Uber, ePay, there are certain platform economies, right? So its recent focus is in platform economies and gig workers who are freelance workers. And the next point is that green jobs. Green jobs means the jobs irrespective of the recent focus of the International Labour Organization is very notable. Platform economy, gig workers, green jobs, etc. Platform economy, we can see Uber services, GPay. Gig workers means freelance workers, and the green jobs, which is promoting the environment, health, whatever their range of work is. And the next one is Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO. It was established in the year 1945 along with the United Nations and its headquarters is in Rome, Italy. So when we think of food like pasta, pizza, everything is coming from Italy, Rome, right? So you can think of food connected to Italy and remember the same. Food and Agriculture Organization, what would be its primary aim? It would be achieving food security, to combat hunger and promote sustainable agriculture. So food and agriculture to fight against hunger and also to promote sustainable agricultural development. The functions, major functions are to to provide early warning for farming, works on fisheries, forestry and agricultural statistics. And the recent works, notable works of FAO is that Global Food Security Index updates were given by the FAO, and FAO along with World Food Programme WFP provides famine prevention partnerships. And the next one is International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund or IMF was established in the year 1944 and its headquarters is in Washington DC, USA. Whenever we read something about, there are only two organizations which is related to money. One is the World Bank and the another one is International Monetary Fund. Whenever something related to money we are discussing about, it will be, its headquarters will be in Washington DC, USA. Both for World Bank and International Monetary Fund, the headquarters will be in Washington DC, USA. So the major aim of International Monetary Fund is that to ensure global monetary stability, facilitate international trade. Major functions are, it offers loan to countries facing balance of payment crisis. That is when they are unstable in their financial areas, the International Monetary Fund offers them the fund to resolve the issues, and it monitors economic performance via Article 4 consultations and provides technical support for its member nations. So basically what IMF does is that it provides financial aid to the nations in crisis, it provides assistance in technical aspects and also in advisory forms. The recent focus of IMF is on climate related financial risks and support for debt distressed nations post-COVID. So next to IMF, we will be dealing with World Bank Group. We have heard about World Bank. What is World Bank Group? World Bank Group is an international financial institution or a group of organizations. There are 5 primary organs in the World Bank Group. They are IBRD, IDA, IFC, MIGA, ICSID. So what these abbreviations stand for? International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, that is IBRD, and International Development Association is IDA. IBRD and IDA, these two togetherly form the World Bank. As we hear the name World Bank, that is formed by IBRD and IDA. And we have under the World Bank Group 3 other organs also, which are International Finance Corporation IFC, Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency MIGA, and International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. Among these 5 organizations under the World Bank Group, India is not a party to only one of the organization, that is ICSID, International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. I will give little more details about these particular institutions. World Bank as it is was created in 1944 as the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development IBRD, which later paved the way for World Bank. World Bank is consisted of IBRD and IDA. Okay, this is a product of Bretton Woods Agreement. Another product of Bretton Woods Agreement is the International Monetary Fund. So Bretton Woods Agreement product, there are 2 products, one is International Monetary Fund and the other one is World Bank. These 2 are the products of Bretton Woods Agreement, and there is one more organ which is not in operation, which paved the way for WTO, that was the product of Bretton Woods Agreement, the precursor of World Trade Organization, that is GATT, General Agreement for Trade and Tariff. These 3 were the aftermath or after result of the Bretton Woods Agreement, IMF, World Bank and GATT, which later paved the way for World Trade Organization. So International Monetary Fund along with World Bank Group is known as Bretton Woods Twins. As I said, World Bank was created in 1944 and it is headquartered in Washington DC. All money related aspects of the organization related to money are headquartered in Washington DC, USA, along with International Monetary Fund. World Bank also is headquartered in Washington DC. And we will look more into this subsidiary organization that makes the World Bank. World Bank is one of the United Nations specialized agency, and IBRD, the primary principal organ, it offers guarantees, loans, risk management products and advisory services to creditworthy low income and middle income countries, as well as by coordinating responses to global and regional challenges. And IDA, what it does is that it grants loans to world's poorest developing countries. And India, while looking the term India is a blend country, so India can avail loans from both IBRD and IDA because it is a developing poor nation, so it can avail loans from both IBRD and IDA. Both these grants loans to low income, middle income countries and to coordinate responses to global and regional challenges. IFC, while IBRD and IDA provides loans to states, nations, IFC what it does is that it focuses on private sector of the world. It is known as the private sector arm of the World Bank Group. It focuses exclusively on the private sector and private sector companies in its member nations. And MIGA, what it does is that it provides political risk insurance to investors and lenders. MIGA, what it stands for, Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. So, what the title is the basic function of MIGA. It provides political risk insurance to investors and lenders against the loss caused by non-commercial, that is political risks such as currency transfer, war and civil disturbances, etc. So, it basically promotes foreign direct investment into developing countries. And the last we have ICSID, which India is not a party to. It is an international arbitration institution under the World Bank Group. It was set up in the year 1966 to settle international investment dispute. Why India is not a party to ICSID? Because we have the Indian judiciary and we believe that the Indian judiciary is far enough to deal with all the disputes that are arising in India. So, we are not availing the services of a foreign arbitration firm which deals with the disputes, which resolves the disputes. ICSID's decisions are binding on its parties, so it promotes international investment by providing confidence in the dispute resolution process. So, that will be the World Bank Group. It consists of these 5 organs, wherein IBRD and IDA forms the World Bank. Okay. The recent programs of World Bank: climate adaptation financing, digital infrastructure investments in Global South. Next, we move on to World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO. It was established in the year 1967 and is headquartered in Geneva. What it does is that, as the name suggests, it protects intellectual property rights internationally. It administrates different programs like Patent Cooperation Treaty, Madrid System for Trademark. Patent Cooperation Treaty, one has to register for patent protection in one's own country and in other countries as well in the earlier days, but now under the Patent Cooperation Treaty, we can universally register for one time and it will be valid and persisting in all countries. Similar to that only, the Madrid System for Trademarks also exists. For trademarks, Madrid System for Trademarks, universal registration is allowed. Its recent works include Global Innovation Index and AI and Copyright Guidelines. The next specialized agency of United Nations that we will discuss is International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. ICAO, Civil Aviation Organization, it is headquartered in Montreal, Canada. That you can remember by, in reality, everybody is flying to Canada looking for jobs outside India. So, where everybody is flying off to get jobs, in reality, it's in Montreal, Canada. You can remember, or you can create a mnemonic or something to remember the same. It was established in the year 1944, and what it does is that it sets standards for air safety, navigation, because we are using the global space for aviation, right? So, they set standards and regulations for the same, for maintaining air safety, navigation and airport security. And there is another UN specialized agency, International Maritime Organization. What we dealt with was aviation and now it is maritime. It is headquartered in London, UK, and it was established in the year 1948. It ensures maritime safety, legal shipping practices and environmental protection, as there are cases of oil spillage, leakages, etc. every time while dealing with maritime cases. United Nations Industrial Development Organization would be the next specialized agency. It is headquartered in Vienna and it was established in the year 1966. It focuses on inclusive and sustainable industrial development. So whatever organization, specialized agency that we study, what the name suggests, that would be the core function, the major function. They will set standards for that and they will ensure that standards are followed by, and to finally promote peace and security through sustainable development and international cooperation among the member states. So we now discuss basically about the United Nations, the world's largest international organization, its principal organs and the specialized agencies under the UN. And now we'll talk about another important international organization which is named as BRICS. You might have heard the name BRICS. So what all countries are included in the BRICS? It is just you have to study the first letter of each country. B stands for Brazil, R for Russia, I for India, C for China and S for South Africa. So first initially there was only BRIC, B-R-I-C, Brazil, Russia, India and China, which was, the term was coined in 2001 and later on in 2010, South Africa also was added to this organization and the term was coined as BRICS. So what this BRICS organization is aiming to attain is that to bring global governance, to shift the global governance to the south side of the world also, because the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, everything is situated in Washington DC, USA. The great powers of the world are lying on the other side and there is less representation for the south side, the global south side of the world. So to shift the governance from global to global south and also to seek financial independence from Bretton Woods system. Bretton Woods system, we have already discussed about the Bretton Woods twins, which are the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, which was established as the aftermath of the Bretton Woods agreement. So to have an independent structure devoid of the Bretton Woods system was also an aim of the BRICS organization. And with this motive in mind, they created New Development Bank. It was earlier known as BRICS Bank itself. It was later termed as New Development Bank. It was established in the year 2014, very recently. And it is a multilateral development bank. What is multilateral? Which includes different nations, which includes the participation of different nations. This is a multilateral development bank established by the BRICS nations. Why? Because its primary aim is to get financial independence from the Bretton Woods agreement. So it supports private and public financial instruments or projects through loans, guarantees, equity participation. So generally financial instrument means if a company is to run, it has its own finance, what is called capital, and also it seeks financial assistance from others. We can invest, like you might have heard of investments, right? So financial instruments just think that I need some money, I have some money, I need some more money. So there are certain type of financial instruments which you can think as of different plates or pots. So we are keeping these different plates or pots in front of us, and people who are interested in putting money in these plates or pots that are different financial instruments, they give us the money and we use it for conducting our businesses. So this New Development Bank, they help private also public projects through guarantees, loans and these type of financial instruments for funding different projects of their member states. And this BRICS New Development Bank, it is headquartered in Shanghai, China. Why? Because the new BRICS nations are Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, and the New Development Bank, the BRICS Bank established by the BRICS countries, would be definitely headquartered in one of the countries, right? So it is headquartered in Shanghai, China, and the current president is Dilma Rousseff. Dilma Rousseff. She was the ex-president of Brazil, and the member nations of New Development Bank include the BRICS countries, and along with that Algeria, Bangladesh, Egypt, Indonesia, UAE and Uruguay. The official language of the New Development Bank, or NDB, would be English, and the authorized capital of this bank is divided among the founding members, and each founding member has one vote with no veto powers. That would be with regard to the New Development Bank, which is a global south side bank, which is an initiative by the BRICS nations. Also, there is another investment bank named as Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. It is headquartered in Beijing, China. New Development Bank was headquartered in Shanghai, China. AIIB is headquartered in Beijing. You can use A to B, the first letter, Beijing. The other one, BRICS Bank. There is an X in BRICS Bank, right? The New Development Bank is also known as the BRICS Bank. So that S can be used to remember the word Shanghai, which is its headquarters. This is also a multilateral development bank and international financial institution to collectively improve the economic and social outcomes in Asia is the primary goal of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, and its current president is Jin Liken. There are 110 members in AIIB, and the maximum share is held by China and the second largest share is held by India. And also we have to discuss, we will move on to the other key international organization, that is World Trade Organization. As I already said, the Bretton Woods Agreement gave birth to 3 different organizations. One is International Monetary Fund, IMF. The second one is World Bank, that is related to money only, World Bank. And the third one was GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, GATT, which paved the way for World Trade Organization, which was later replaced by World Trade Organization. So, World Trade Organization, it is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland itself. As I already said, as a mnemonic to remember, whatever international organization that starts with the word world and ends with the word organization, its headquarters would be in Geneva. And this World Trade Organization, WTO, was established in the year 1995 and it replaced GATT. It majorly regulates international trade because there are many corporations transactions happening between the nations, the worldwide, and there has to be some entity that is in control or who sets the standards for international trade, right? So WTO is such an agency, such an organization which regulates the international trade, which sets standards for trade, and there might be disputes between the nations regarding trade. So all these disputes will be settled by the WTO. Those are the key roles of WTO. Its current director general is Ngozi Okonjo, and its main purpose is to reduce tariffs and other barriers to trade. So to ensure a smooth trade is what the primary purpose of WTO is. It's the world's largest economic organization to regulate and facilitate international trade, and the governments use WTO to establish, to revise and to enforce the rules that govern international trade in cooperation with the United Nations. So for trade agreements, the WTO provides a basic framework for how a trade agreement is to be made, and this trade agreement is signed by the member states of those agreements and they are ratified by their legislature. That's how the WTO is worked. So WTO, World Trade Organization, it was established in 1955 and headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. Its major function is to ensure smooth and fair trade practices. So recent issues which relates to World Trade Organization include vaccine patent debates and trade war concerns between China and the US. And the another international organization which needs to be discussed is International Atomic Energy Agency. We already said that headquarters is in Vienna, which is related to atomic energy, IAEA, okay, International Atomic Energy Agency. It was established in the year 1957 and it promotes peaceful use of nuclear weapons, nuclear energy, and that's the primary goal of IAEA, to maintain peace and security by regulating the use of nuclear weapons and nuclear energy, and to make trials or do trials of the nuclear weapons also is regulated by International Atomic Energy Agency. So next we discuss about Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. So just as its name suggests, economic cooperation and development among the member nations are held as a motive for this particular organization. It was established in the year 1961 and its headquarters is in Paris. It is a forum of 38 advanced economies. So what it does is that it publishes data on education, economy and tax policy. So by publishing data on these aspects, other nations which are not so developed, not so economically advanced, can make use of these data and details to ensure their own development. So that is basically the aim of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. And the another one, we have heard the term earlier, International Criminal Court, which is different from International Court of Justice, which is a principal organ of the UN, as we already discussed. International Criminal Court was established in the year 2002. Its headquarters also in Hague, which is the same as that of the International Court of Justice. Both are headquartered in The Hague, Netherlands. But what is different is that where in the International Court of Justice, the dispute between the states are looked into, and here it tries individuals. ICC tries individuals for genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, etc. It is not a UN body but works in collaboration with the UN body. So there should not be a confusion between ICJ, International Court of Justice, which is the primary source, primary organ of the United Nations, and International Criminal Court is not a primary organ. It works in collaboration with the UN, ICC. And the other organization which needs to be looked into is Financial Action Task Force, FATF, which is an intergovernmental body just like the others, but it is formed to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. It maintains grey list and black list, which you might have heard of. India is a member. Pakistan was recently removed from the grey list. Okay, so sometimes we see in the newspaper that this particular nation is to be included in the black list or grey list. So this task is assigned to the Financial Action Task Force. It is mainly designed to stop money laundering and terrorist financing. So we are concluding the session by revising all the topics that we dealt with today. Firstly, we looked into United Nations, the most important and most largest organization. The United Nations came into effect, or it was established after the failure of League of Nations. League of Nations also was established after World War I. It was also aimed at maintaining peace and security, in which it failed miserably and only lasted for 26 years. It was established in the year 1920 through the Treaty of Versailles, and it was headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. It had some major organs like the principal organs of the United Nations. Some of them were carried over to the United Nations, and later on United Nations came into effect. It was established in 1945 after World War II. Through it had UN Charter was written and it was established as a result of that. Franklin D. Roosevelt came with the term United Nations, and one person, Cordell Hull, is known as the father of UN, which I forgot to mention earlier because he received Nobel Peace Prize for taking prominent efforts in making into a reality the United Nations. And there are 6 primary organs for United Nations. General Assembly is there, Security Council, ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council, the Secretariat, ICJ and Trusteeship Council. Among these, Trusteeship Council is in an inactive status right now. Other all 5 organs are active and working. And General Assembly is the body where they make decisions, they conduct discussions, and they have a session for September to December each year. And all the 5 organs except all the 6 organs except the International Court of Justice, they are headquartered in New York itself. Only the ICJ is headquartered in Hague. One other organization also is headquartered in Hague, which is a judicial wing itself, but it is International Criminal Court, which is different from ICJ. Okay, ICC and ICJ both are headquartered in Hague, Netherlands. And General Assembly and the Security Council is there, which consists of only 15 members, whereas in General Assembly there are 193 members. And Economic and Social Council, it is meant to develop peace and security through economic and social collaboration between the member states. And Secretariat is the administrative wing and carries day-to-day functions of the UN. So there is a Secretary General which is elected by the General Assembly, and he has a term of 5 years which can be renewed for a further period. And there is International Court of Justice which deals with the disputes between the states, and it also gives recommendations, advisory opinions when certain disputes are referred to it. And the official languages of International Court of Justice are English and French. Okay. And the Trusteeship Council was meant to administer or have a supervision over the 11 trust countries which are not in existence which is not in existence right now because its goal was fulfilled back then. And we dealt about the principal organs. So you have to remember the headquarters, which is very easy because only one is situated in Hague, all the other is situated in New York itself. And then we dealt about UN specialized agencies. These are autonomous bodies which are under the control of ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. So they are working in collaboration through agreements. World Health Organization, WHO, we have to remember the abbreviations and the full forms. World Health Organization, it is situated in, headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. It starts with world and ends with organization. So it will be headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. And its goal is to set health standards and to achieve the same. The recent initiative during the pandemic is a very notable initiative by WHO, and there is UNESCO. UNESCO, first thing, this when the word UNESCO comes into mind, we think about the World Heritage Sites, right, which are recognized by the UNESCO and they are protected by this World Heritage Site scheme by UNESCO, and it is headquartered in Paris, France. It promotes peace through education, science and culture by collaboration and by sharing these details. And there is International Labour Organization, ILO, which was established way before the formation or establishment of UN, since it was started with the establishment of League of Nations and it was continued. So it emphasizes a clean working environment, a fair working environment, not clean, fair working environment for the laborers of the world or the nations. And Food and Agricultural Organization along with World Food Program, they intend to achieve food security, combat hunger and promote sustainable agriculture. And then we have monetary or finance related organization, International Monetary Fund, IMF, and World Bank Group. Both are headquartered in Washington DC, USA, which is togetherly known as Bretton Woods Twins. And there is WIPO, World Intellectual Property Rights Organization. It is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. Starts with world and it ends with organization. So it is to promote and protect intellectual property by cooperating with nations. And this particular WIPO, it has a global innovation index. It evaluates capacity and performance of various economies. So WIPO is a co-publisher along with Cornell University and INSEE. So in this Global Innovation Index, it is known as GII, Global Innovation Index. It is published by World Intellectual Property Rights Organization. Switzerland ranks first and India's rank is 39th in Global Innovation Index. Innovation Index is related to intellectual property. Okay. And then there is International Civil Aviation Organization, which is headquartered in Montreal, Canada. Aviation, everybody flies to Canada in search of job. So, Montreal, Canada, it is headquartered there, and it sets standards for regulations for air safety, navigation and airport security. There is International Maritime Organization, which deals with shipping practices and environmental protection related to maritime aspects. It is headquartered in London, UK, Maritime. It was established in 1948, and there is UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization for Inclusive and Sustainable Industrial Development. It is headquartered in Vienna, Austria. And we also discussed about BRICS, the World Trade Organization, and the banks or financial institution of the global south side, which includes New Development Bank, NDB, and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Now we can also discuss about UN funds and programs directly funded by the UN and overseen by the General Assembly. There are certain organizations. One is United Nations Development Program, UNDP. It was established in the year 1965 and headquartered in New York itself. So its mandate is to promote sustainable development, governance and poverty eradication. It is a package for a development of a nation as a whole. So its key roles are to implement Human Development Index, HDI, and supports climate resilience, digital inclusion, etc. So it relies or focuses on overall development of a nation. And the next one is UNICEF. You might have heard of it, right? United Nations Children's Fund. UNICEF was its expansion, as in the earlier case included the I also, International Fund, but now its term is United Nations Children's Fund, but it is known as UNICEF itself. It was established in the year 1946. It is headquartered in New York. It works for the rights of children, including their education, their nutrition, and their protection from harms like child labor, child marriage, etc. Its focus areas are child immunization, protection in conflict zones, gender equality, etc. And UNEP is another program, United Nations Environment Program. It was established in the year 1972 and it is headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya. It coordinates global responses to environmental issues and it publishes reports like Emissions Gap Report, Global Environment Outlook. Emissions Gap Report means a goal is set and what all activities are done by the nations to achieve a separate goal, or what is the gap between these two, what is the current status and what is the status that is to be achieved. The gap in between is analyzed by the United Nations Environment Program UNEP and reports are published by UNEP so that the nations can look into how much is the gap, what all things are to be done. So the resolutions or suggestions are given by UNEP. It is related to environment. Okay, the next one is World Food Program. It was established in the year 1961 and food related we studied earlier. Food related would be headquartered in Rome. Okay, it's world's largest humanitarian agency against hunger and was awarded Nobel Peace Prize in 2020. It operates mainly in conflict zones like Yemen, Sudan, etc. And there is another organization, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. It is headquartered in Geneva and it was established in the year 1950. It protects rights of refugees and displaced people. It coordinates global refugee response with governments and NGOs. And there is another one, UN Habitat, works on sustainable urban development. Its headquarters is in Nairobi, which is as same as the Environment Program. Environment Program and the UN Habitat both are headquartered in Nairobi. Another agency or fund is United Nations Population Fund. It works on reproductive health, population data and gender equality. It is active in maternal health and family planning. So they collect data and they are useful for the other nations to plan their population, and it is a fund from which maternal health and family plan for which we can take funds, the funds are allotted. So World Trade Organization we have already discussed. Atomic Agency, Economic Cooperation, Criminal Court, FATF we have discussed. So please try to remember the organizations, their full forms, their headquarters, the year in which they are established and the major key functions which can be sorted out or solved from their headings only. If it is for economic cooperation and development, its primary aim will be what? Economic cooperation and development. So data will be collected and it will be used for the development, economic data. Atomic Energy Agency, it will be related to atomic energy, nuclear energy and prevention of nuclear weapons, etc. So you try to remember the abbreviation, the full forms and the intention, the headquarters. So that's all we will be dealing with in this session. We dealt with the international organizations, UN, allied agencies, principal organs and certain other funds and certain other international organizations which are of prime importance. So try to study, remember their names, their abbreviations, their expanded form and the headquarters. Try to make mnemonics and study the headquarters and the full forms. Try to always remember that, revise the same. So that's all for today. See you in the coming sessions. Thank you.